I want to go to the Deputy Prime Minister now, Michael McCormack. He's going to join me by the phone. He's in Wagga. He's electorate of Wagga. Deputy Prime Minister Michael McCormack, thanks for joining us. Appreciate your time.
Kelly, actually.
Hey?
Hometown of Paul Kelly, the footballer.
I was going to suggest that. Yep. I thought Paul Kelly, the former Swans champion, might have hailed from the Riverina. He did indeed.
He's a good mate of mine.
Oh, good man, good man. Now tell us about this package announced yesterday. It's still difficult to digest, a $130 billion package to try and keep millions of Australians in work, but with well over 200,000 companies already registering for interest, it shows not only that the package is going to be well received, but it shows just how much pain there is, how many jobs are in jeopardy across this country.
Oh, it does, Chris, and I can tell you as of 5 o'clock today, there have been 285,623 unique ABN registrations, and so we're providing the historic wage subsidy to around 6 million workers. They're going to receive a flat payment of $1,500 a fortnight through their employer before tax. It's $130 billion, as you say. This JobKeeper payment is going to help keep Australians in jobs as we tackle together as a nation the significant impact that the coronavirus is having on our economy. And of course, as Paul Kelly has just, Professor Paul Kelly, the Deputy Chief Medical Officer, has just indicated, we're tackling it on the health front too. And so this is a battle. We have to win. We must win. And as the Prime Minister has said repeatedly, we will win on two fronts, both an economic and a health front.
Now, just to get into this job seeker payment, some of the detail of it and what I think is one of the barnacles. Firstly, it's important for people to understand that if there's a $1,500 a subsidy, $1,500 a fortnight subsidy going to an employer to keep someone on their books, they can still pay them more. They can still pay them their normal wage, but they're getting that subsidised through the $750 a week from the government. But one of the problems I would see with this scheme is that it's a flat rate, so there'll be some people who are on casual wages below that, a part-time casual arrangement, and so they may actually end up being paid more under this system. Is that a problem? Because it's a great disincentive for people looking for other work, or even after all this has passed us.
Yeah, but we have to obviously make sure that we support the economy, and that's what we're doing. Yes, look, there will be certainly winners from this. There will be people who, for whom the $1,500 is going to support what they did. It's going to support their business. It's going to support the economy, and that's the important thing now. The payment will be paid to employers for up to 6 months for each eligible employee who was on their books from the 1st of March 2020. It's retained, or it continues to be engaged by that employer. So, yes, it's there will be people who say, oh, why don't you do this or why don't you do that? But look, at the end of the day, Chris, it's going to support the economy. It's going to help keep workers with money in their pockets. It's going to help cash flow in businesses. It's going to help as many businesses as we can to keep their doors open. And, of course, this JobKeeper payment is going to be reimbursed from the first week of May. So it's a good system. It's taken a lot of work to get it to this point in time. Of course, Parliament's going to have to be recalled for a day to pass it through, but I know it's going to have broad support, has to have broad support. We have to support our workers and our economy. It's going to support 6 million of them.
Well, given the criteria, and that is even the biggest companies in this land, if they lose 50% of their turnover, they'll qualify.
50% of their turnover, yes.
So you don't have to
be 30% for those 30% businesses for under $1 billion.
Yep. Most companies it's 30%, but for the really big companies, 50%. But even with those numbers, of course, I would expect our major airlines, Qantas and Virgin, are going to qualify for this. They're going to be able to access this to try and keep a lot of their workforce on the payroll. Is it a bit rich for these two airlines, given they're going to benefit from this scheme, to then have their handouts today looking for, effectively, grants from government to keep them alive?
Well, of course, the aviation industry in general provides $45 billion to our economy. It employs 250,000 workers, and of course many of those, tens of thousands of them, are working for the two carriers who you mentioned. Government wants a two-airline industry coming out of COVID-19. I mean, times are especially tough for all aviation. That's why we announced $715 million. I announced that at Wagga Wagga, indeed, including $159 million backdated to February 1, lifting of the fuel excise, the Air Services Australia and security screening charges. That's why last weekend I announced another nearly $300 million of additional measures, including $198 million to subsidise regional airlines flying into those 138 centres or so, and of course underwriting our regional airlines to the tune of $100 million. There's been over $1 billion put into our airline sector. It's needed, of course, when you close all those routes, international, domestic and regional, when they're stopped. Our aviation industry, of course, is left on its knees. So we want to make sure that we've got two major airlines coming out of this. It's going to be hard, it's going to be difficult, but particularly for regional airlines, they're hurting too. And so we want to be there for all our airline companies and making sure that we can support as many of those workers in the industry as we can, and that's what we're doing through JobKeeper and through other initiatives.
Now, these social distancing or physical distancing rules right around our country are pretty arduous, but as Paul Kelly was just saying in that interview, the take-up by Australians, the adherence, the understanding of Australians to these right across the country has been very, very quick and very, very good. The federal government, of course, is not in charge of law enforcement, but are you concerned with drones in the sky and police cars going into parks and basically sending people home, telling them to get out of parks? People who might be lying on their own and sunbaking, obviously not interacting with others. Surely there's got to be a give and take here, as long as people are sensibly not gathering in big groups.
Well, yes and no. I drove home from the office last night. It was just on dusk, and there were dozens of people out in a local park doing a boot camp. Now, they can't do that. They simply can't do it, because what we need to do, as Professor Kelly has just said, and Brendan Murphy has said over and over and over again, is we have to stop this milling in parks and congregating with each other at such close distance. We have to practice that social distancing, because we've got to contain and minimise the spread. Well, look, we've been very, very lucky. We've had as far as a country is concerned, 19 deaths, and that's 19 too many. And it's very, very sad. But by the close of business today, we will have had about 240,000 tests. We've got a very good success rate as far as making sure that we've minimised the spread of the virus, making sure that we've contained it as best we can. Sadly, we've lost 19 people. 19 Australians have lost their lives, and for them and their families, that is absolutely tragic. But our record compared to other countries is pretty good. We want to make sure that we keep flattening that curve, as Professor Kelly has said, and the only way we can do that is by people making sure that if they're told to self-isolate and practising social distancing at every step of the way.
Thanks so much for joining us, Deputy Prime Minister.
Anytime at all, Chris.